Hello, world. My next guest is a sales leader with over 15 years in the digital MarTech space and a proven track record of entering new regions, building successful teams, exceeding goals, and delivering strong revenue growth together with marketing over at Demandbase. As the first ever Demandbase employee in EMEA, with a mission to evangelize ABM, account-based marketing, us marketers love our acronyms, define a go-to-market strategy, and build a world-class team, Paul Gibson, VP EMEA, joins me today on the Radically Transparent podcast, brought to you by Oktopost. Paul, such a background, super excited. Are you ready to get radically transparent with me?
I am indeed, Jen. Looking forward to it. You're making me sound very old already. 15 years, blimey.
15 years. A lot has changed in those 15 years. And
Absolutely.
where I would love to start, because I find it fascinating, would you be able to maybe give us a brief journey? I know it's 15 years worth, but maybe we can trim it down to a minute or so of your professional journey and really what attracted you as the first employee, really, taking a risk there over in EMEA to Demandbase.
Absolutely, yeah. And I'll try and do it in a way that I don't sound too ancient. But yeah, I suppose, where MarTech world started was back in the Microsoft days. I was part of the Microsoft team that built and launched the first ever CRM version, as we all know, Dynamics today. And back in those days, obviously, it was very new and very early, very exciting. So that was a great grounding on all things MarTech. And then I moved in through an ESP I worked for, mobile technology, predictive analytics, mainly in the B2C space. And it's a great point, actually. Why did I go into Demandbase? And I suppose it was about 7 years ago they approached me. And one of the things I'd found over the years that there was a reliance on CRM and marketing automation systems, which at the time were, hugely being invested in and seen as very valuable, which of course they are, but they relied solely on the known audience. And there was this whole, roughly around 95% of the audiences out there were doing things anonymously on and off their website they just didn't know about. And then I was approached by this company called Demandbase. And the first thing they said to me was, we help clients turn on that 95% of the anonymous traffic so they understand where they should focus their efforts on the unknown buying committee rather than the known. And it's still as relevant today as it was then, but to me it was a no-brainer. And I was like, wow, hang on, that's the missing piece. So I was very excited to jump in both feet.
So I think that's phenomenal. And ABM, I feel kind of as marketing has evolved, all these big trends and everybody's, kind of jumping. I think at one point it was content marketing. Everybody's doing content marketing. And now, account-based marketing, you're hearing it all the time. And I know we're going to get to later in this episode kind of where it's going, perhaps. But in a quick one-liner, what value today does Demandbase, really bring to your customers?
And it's evolved so much over the last 2 or 3 years that putting it into one sentence will be tough. And I talk too much as it is, but I'll try. So what do? We help our clients really understand from their ICP accounts which ones are in market right now, what buying journeys and what buying signals are they giving to help our clients understand who they should focus on, what messaging they should utilize, and what channels they should make use of within their marketing stacks, as we call them, and then roll out activities around maybe email or advertising, etc. The idea being we help them build a better, more relevant pipeline with faster sales cycles, higher average order values, and close rates that go up. So that sales and marketing alignment is second to none. I don't know if that was a sentence. I tried not to breathe in it, but that was a really rapid way of saying, end to end, all the things we can offer.
Well, I love it. Anything that says sales and marketing alignment, I'm totally on board with and for.
Okay.
And that kind of leads me into kind of this, account-based marketing. And, I'm not trying to sell it short here at all. And, you're coming over into the episode from Demandbase, which I know ABM, it's really what Demandbase is all about. But I do feel like right now it is a super hot strategy. I don't think you would talk to any sales or marketing leader right now and they wouldn't have heard what ABM is or not sure what ABM is. It's a pretty solid part. I think even after looking at those 2 transitional years, I'll call them, of the pandemic, we've seen kind of everybody pivoting towards a more ABM approach. But what I do find interesting, the more and more marketers I speak with, is that there are still a lot of us, sometimes myself included, right, who we really think we're doing account-based marketing, but in reality, when I speak to some of the experts who really do live, eat, sleep, breathe account-based marketing, we're actually not even close. So I was hoping we could get a little bit radically transparent, if you will, about what marketers may not know about account-based marketing, or, right, we can approach the question a little bit differently. In your opinion, what don't we know that we should?
Yeah, that's a great question. And again, multiple answers around that one. I think what's interesting, as we said, I've been doing this for about 7 years now for Demandbase, and it's changed dramatically. I don't think anyone's ever disputed that account-based marketing works as a tactic. But I think what's changed is over the last 7 years, it's evolved from that manually intensive. Each of those accounts we've got to build microsites for, we've got to build this big plan and strategy or whatever, which takes a long time and is actually quite an expensive, as I say, time-consuming manual process. And with the introduction of technologies like a Demandbase and others out there as well, it's now turned into something that can be scaled. So you keep that understanding. You want to be personalized. You want to be relevant based on what they're doing and how they're doing it. But now with technology, you can scale that across all of your relevant accounts. And that means all of the sales managers and all of their accounts are getting the same approach that once upon a time, just that key account used to get. So I think that's a big thing that's changed. And you mentioned planning, and I think this is fascinating now. And one of the things that I talk about all the time, not just with marketing and sales, actually more and more with CFOs, which is really quite an interesting subject, is the strategy for a lot of marketing and salespeople is still built a lot around that. It is that guesswork. I hope what I did last year will work again this year. And I hope that those accounts I want to go after the right ones. And I think often what's missed is the power of data that you can get in these technologies now allow you to understand, actually, these are the companies I should be focusing my efforts on. And these are the marketing strategies I should have, as opposed to saying, well, last year I spent £1 million on advertising. I'm going to do it again this year. Now CFOs are getting a bit smarter and they're saying, well, okay, well, where are you focusing that £1 million? Who are you marketing to? So I think what is actually changing is that account-based marketing is getting more sophisticated. And I think it's really making sure that we've all got limited time, budget, and resource, right? Let's make sure every element of that is only spent and focused on those companies that A, we can sell to, and B, are in market right now. So I think it has evolved. And I think now technology is making a far better part of that overall process. You can't do technology without strategy. You can't do strategy without technology. It's that combination of both, which I think has really taken a while to be adopted. And the other thing I would say is I think the European market has had to be much more sophisticated, even perhaps than the US market, because in the US there are so many companies, right, that even if you did a fairly average campaign, you're probably going to be fairly successful in getting a number of accounts engaging. In Europe, it's a lot smaller market and there's a lot more players in there, so you have to be much more sophisticated. So my view is actually account-based approaches are probably even more relevant to Europe than they are in the US.
Mm-hmm,
I wouldn't say that to my US colleagues, but
it's really interesting. I want to also kind of dive a little bit into, right, we talked about 2022 planning, and I think right, and you're talking about, okay, let's rely on the data. We want to understand which accounts we should be focusing on, taking away the guesswork, licking your finger, putting it in the air and seeing which way the wind is blowing. So you're kind of saying that inability to build a plan around really knowing, that's where the data comes in and helps. Now, I want to shift for a moment because you and I had spoken a few weeks prior offline around this kind of new, dare I say it, the new acronym that people are starting to use. I'm afraid to say another acronym, but you kind of threw at me ABX. And I was wondering, can you decode or kind of help us understand the difference between account-based marketing and then what the heck is ABX and why we should be thinking ABX, right? Didn't we just get ABM down? I don't know.
Yeah, no, you're exactly right. And I'm similar, right? Another acronym. Oh no, here we go. But in reality, it's not anything new. It's just bringing together all the bits that we know are really successful in a go-to-market strategy. That's what it is simply. So ABM, I think we're all agreeing that it works, right? If you can be personalized and relevant at the right time, it works. The bit that is also out there that everyone talks about, and not everyone harnesses, this customer experience. If I want to get that person really engaging with me, I've got to be relevant. I've got to make sure I understand not just who they are and what their industry is, but what their buying signals are, where they are in the buyer journey, because what you offer there is very different. So it's that combination of the account-based marketing approach and customer experience coming together account-based experience. So it's not as a whole new thing. It's just bringing together the bits that we know work into a single place. And I think that messaging bit is really a key part of it. So, you know, if you've got someone who's just starting their buyer journey, they're brand new to the market, or they've never heard of you as an organization, you can't go in there with a call to action straight away, because you're just going to lose them. You've got to have that emotional feel to get them thinking that brand is really somewhere I want to be, someone I want to be talking to. Once they start showing some more relevant buying signals, then you bring in the logical side of it. So the educational stuff and all around that, getting them understanding why, you know, what they're trying to do is really relevant. And it's only when they start showing buying signals and start engaging with you, bring that call to action in there, and really start honing down on why it's you that they should be focused on. Then they get to the stage, oh, it looks like we could close this deal. Then you move into the validation phase, and it's really best practice and making sure that they're fully understanding, you know, all the concepts that make sense to them. So you're really getting that entire buyer committee, not just the people that are being sold to by sales, but the rest of that buying committee, understanding, yeah, right brand, right product, right solution, this is really working. And then beyond sale, once you've sold that, it's really nurturing the customer so that you can continue with your best practice advice, so that they're able to maybe upsell to another product or something else that you offer, additional services, whatever it may be. So that ABX approach, bringing together that customer experience we just spoke about with the account-based approach we've always agreed is the right thing, is really the essence of ABX. And of course, the last piece in the puzzle, account-based marketing, there's always the goggles on, oh, that's marketing. Now, we know all areas of the business should really be adopting this account-based approach, be that the sales team, the SDR team, the customer success team. And if you combine it all together, so you're all looking at the same data, you're building the same strategy, you're working together, it's a lot more effective. So it is an acronym, but I think all we're really doing is trying to bring all those key bits that everyone probably agrees is the right thing to do together under one umbrella, if that makes sense.
It does make sense. And I think going back to what you said earlier, now that the CFOs are also getting involved in the conversation, it does make sense to kind of encompass, you know, you have your sales, your customer success, your marketing, and how are they all falling under this umbrella to drive revenue, which makes a lot of sense. And absolutely. I have to share, I had read, you know, John Miller, he was a guest on our show, Your Fearless Leader, a few months back. And we were talking about ABM and social, but I had come across an article that he described account-based marketing as fishing with spears. And I had a little laugh, because he basically acknowledged that, you know, when you fish with spears, you poke the fish, and being poked by a spear isn't necessarily so pleasant. And he kind of talked about how, like, ABX is more about kind of, right, encompassing more. You're not poking that fish, but again, being a little bit more broad. And I love that analogy. But with that kind of leads me to start wondering, you know, Paul, in your role, in your career, I mean, there's a lot of change going on, leaving out the last few years, but what on earth, right, is keeping you up at night professionally as you see all of these shifts in the market taking place, as a sales leader, as, you know, VP EMEA? It sounds like such a, you know, a royalty role. Like, what is keeping you up?
Yeah, absolutely. You can't knock the VP term, right? I think that's very much an American view of job title, or whatever. But I love it. I love it. It's a difficult one. I mean, one of the things that we've already touched on a bit, I'm not saying it keeps me up at night, but does surprise me is the number of leaders, be they sales leaders or marketing leaders, that really do admit that they're a bit blind to what's going on. And there's a lot of initiative and guesswork and intuition going into, I think that's what I'm going to do next year, rather than having the data to back it up. And I don't know how much of that is down to, over the years, it's been very much seen as a strategic approach that takes a lot of time and effort. And we haven't really got the time or the effort to do that. So let's just throw stuff out there and see what sticks. I heard the term spray and pray a lot. You throw advertising here, there, and everywhere and hope that some of it sticks.
Yeah.
Well, in the B2C world, right, that makes a lot of sense, because if you're selling boots or something and you think you identified someone who's interested in buying boots, of course you'll target them, but you'll target everyone else, because there could be other people who want to buy boots at the same time. So it makes sense. In the B2B world, if it's not a company that you can sell to and it isn't a good fit, does it really make sense to focus on them? Because the best case scenario is you get them to engage and you throw an opportunity to sales, and sales being sales, they'll probably go after it because they might be able to close it. The chances of closing it are very slim because it's not a good fit account. And if they do close it, it's not a good fit account. So the chances of renewing it and having a good experience for the customer and indeed the business isn't really there. So as I say, it doesn't something keep me up at night, but it does surprise me how many sometimes very sophisticated organizations just go and get a budget and throw it here, there, and everywhere and hope that some of it sticks. When today there's technologies and data out there to make sure that you can focus all of your time, effort, and resource in the right places. And yeah, so it doesn't keep me up at night, but it does surprise me.
No, listen, I think it's good to talk about surprises as well. And, you know, something that I think is interesting with account-based marketing specifically, or, you know, ABX, if you will, is one, I do think it gives marketers the ability to earn a seat at the strategy table, because as you said, it kind of eliminates the guesswork of, well, did this work or did this not work? Or let's, you know, kind of go with our gut. It does give us the data to be able to really guide us. And that second thing I'd like to share is I do think, right, in a time now more than ever, as more and more strategies, if you will, are going digital, sales and marketing really do need to be aligned. And when you think about how you kind of even structure or begin the conversation with account-based marketing, right, the first thing marketing has to do is give sales a call. Hey, let's talk about which accounts we're going after. So it does force this alignment, this communication, and a new way of working together that, as I said in the beginning, as a marketer and someone who has spent 10 years in sales, I appreciate that more than ever. So I do think that that's really interesting in terms of thinking for 2022. And, you know, we're kind of, I would say, dissolving this old myth of, you know, sales and marketing don't get along. I think we've made strides against that. What I'd like to ask now, and again, for anyone listening in and everybody, I think, right, we're always learning, ABL, always be learning, if you will. Where are some of the places you go to, whether it be publications, podcasts, maybe you follow some influencers, micro influencers in the space to stay up to date in the ABM kind of strategy or the field? Where what are you reading?
That's a great question, and I probably won't pick out any individual piece because I'm a consumer of all sorts from everywhere. And so there's thought leaders that have been around for a long time. There's new thought leaders out in the space, and I would say this, wouldn't I? But having the likes of John Miller in the business is huge. I mean, he was the founder of Marketo and Engagio, so he's got lots of experience and knowledge. And not to plug at all, but his new ABX book that you mentioned is a great font of all knowledge. So, you know, here, there, and everywhere, to be honest. I listen to podcasts like yourself, and I'm always up to date as much as I can with what's going on. But it's a constantly evolving beast, right? I think it's there's always new players in the space, and it's good to get their take on it because often they have a different approach which harnesses things. So
Cool. So we'll encourage everybody listening in to go follow both John Miller and Paul Gibson on LinkedIn. So they're shooting out these new pieces of thought leadership and maybe new approaches. I have two more questions for you before we close out our show. The first is LinkedIn. Right? We can go on LinkedIn and search for Paul Gibson. There's a few that do come up. You find the one for Demandbase, and we can learn a lot about you. And the same, right, can be said if we Google your name. What I want to know right now, and I'd love for you to get a little radically transparent with me, is what's one thing that you can tell us about yourself that we cannot find on your LinkedIn profile or know from Google?
Well, I mean, that's be careful how I answer this one. No, I think from my younger days, I've always been a bit of a surfer, a bit of a ski nut, and one thing I always wanted to do, I don't know if this is the sort of answer you're looking for, what I've always wanted to do is open up a rum and surf shack or a rum and ski shack. So I stick a hut on a beach in a tropical island or up in a mountain somewhere and hire out surfboards and skis. And then at the end of the day, they come back and we sit and over some cool music and a bit of rum, we just talk about the day. So I don't know if that's the sort of thing you're asking for. That's something I've always wanted to do. I'm probably getting too old to do it now. I might just have to settle on the rum and forget the surfing and skiing. But, yeah, it's one of those dreams that I've had since I was a young kid, and you never know, one day.
One day. Listen, one day. What I have to ask, though, because I know you're sitting in EMEA, where do you surf?
I don't anymore. I used to follow the sun. So I used to go down to Newquay, which is down in Cornwall, surf around there a lot, but I went across a lot in Europe. Portugal and places like that. And then I took a 18-month sabbatical and went traveling around, following the sun. So I went down through Hawaii and I did Australia and all around there. So yeah, anywhere there was a wave, I would give it a go.
All right. Well, we're hoping to see that ramen surf shop and maybe the next, that's the 5-year plan here. So we'll keep an eye out for it. My last question for you, Paul. Anyone listening in, they want to learn about ABM. They want to know more about Demandbase. They want to learn more about surfing. Where is the best forum or channel to reach you?
LinkedIn's always good. I'm open to anyone having a chat on LinkedIn. I don't know if you've got my details. I can share them if not after this. I'm very open. I'm an open book, as they say, and happy to talk to anyone. You can, as I say, you can find me very easily on LinkedIn. We have not necessarily me, but we have a really good DBTV resource we just set up. So anything you want to know about ABX, ABM, lots of really interactive videos with customers and lots of knowledge. That's a really good place to go as well.
Fantastic, Paul. Thank you for joining me on the Radically Transparent podcast, brought to you by Oktopost, and we hope to have you back for future, more deep conversations around ABX, because that should be a really interesting one in 2022.
Absolutely. Thanks, Jen. Thoroughly enjoyed it and look forward to speaking to you again soon.
Thanks for tuning in to the Radically Transparent podcast, brought to you by Oktopost, the only social media management and employee advocacy platform architected for B2B. I'm Jennifer Gutman, your host and director of social strategy here at Oktopost. And if you love today's show, we'd love if you subscribe, rate, and give a raving review wherever you get your podcasts. For more discussion on B2B social media marketing, be sure to follow Oktopost on LinkedIn. And of course, to gain access to all our free social media marketing and employee advocacy resources, head on over to our website, www.oktopost.com. Until next time.